Welcome back to the Center in the City podcast. I'm your host, Wade Brill, and I am so glad you are here. In today's solo episode, we are going to explore holiday overwhelm. And because you guys love these overwhelm archetypes, we're going to interweave how our overwhelm archetypes might be showing up this holiday season and how we can work with them, hopefully, in a skillful way. If you're listening and you're like, I don't know if I'm overwhelmed, well, I welcome you to check in. And if you're noticing the holiday season leaves you feeling stressed or checked out or resentful, or just like you're doing something wrong, this episode is for you. It's for you to understand what kind of overwhelm might be showing up and to know that it is possible to move through this season with a little bit more ease and hopefully a lot more joy without putting that pressure on ourselves. Wherever you are listening to this episode, I welcome you to settle in and let's get centered. The holidays are a lot, no matter what spectrum you live on most of the time, whether it's joyful and you love this time of year to you hate this time of year, it's the hardest time of year to it's just a lot, right? There's a lot happening. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of emphasis on presence and spending and showing up. And how are you celebrating and making memories and core memories? And the holidays are just full of too many expectations, whether it's expectations you have of yourself, of you have of other people. The holidays are full of old family dynamics and patterns, some that are probably really beautiful and some that are probably not so skillful. There's the pressure to be present, generous, grateful. There's sometimes even no real break during the holidays. It's just different types of demand. Maybe you're working less, things are a little slower, but your attention and sense of busyness is being pulled in more of family. So, over the last decade of working with people, I have noticed that overwhelm shows up for people in different ways. And when I say overwhelmed, again, I'm kind of using it synonymously with stress. When we experience a lot of stress, when we experience a lot of overwhelm, it takes us out of what is called our window of tolerance. And our window of tolerance is this place where we can feel centered. It's this place where we're calm and we're connected and our nervous system is regulated and we come back to this home base. Now, that doesn't mean we don't get stressed. We don't get into a fight, flight, freeze, fawn reaction. That response is healthy. It's helpful for our body to respond to different stimuli in that way. However, when we're in a season of life, or if it's just everyday life where we're feeling stress and overwhelm, and we're feeling our body more in the fight, flight, freeze, fawn response than in our calm, connected, baseline state of homeostasis, then that's really where our system's being flooded. And we get to learn how to come back to ourselves. And knowing that gets to look differently for each person based on their history, based on their nervous system, based on their conditioning, based on their relationship to self, based on their relationship with others. Now, the holidays are one of the most stressful times of year. So we're going to explore how these different overwhelm archetypes, there's 6 of them. And if you haven't taken the quiz, it's a free quiz that you can check out at wadebrill.com/quiz. Now, all of us have these 6 types of overwhelm archetypes inside of us. However, there's typically one that's prominent or one that's showing up most dominantly in our life. As you listen to this episode, be curious about which one do you feel like is showing up for you specifically right now during this holiday season. And then I'll also share some different ways that you can be with your overwhelm archetype, how you can meet it, and hopefully skillfully come back to a more centered state. I want to emphasize that these overwhelm archetypes, none of them are bad, none of them are better. We're going to drop the judgment with that. And the intention by knowing your overwhelm archetype is that you can start to see it and name it to tame it when it starts to show up in your life, especially around the holidays, and work with it in a more skillful way. So let's dive into the first overwhelm archetype, which is the controller. So the controller is typically somebody who, you might guess, loves to control the situations, loves to control all the factors, loves to try to control the outcome. This is my overwhelm archetype. Now, all of our overwhelm archetypes, that's our go-to response, typically because of some sort of patterning in our survival strategies, something that happened to us as we grew up or the way that we started to see the world in order to survive. Not very much fits for me. Like, I know that life was so uncertain for a really big portion of my younger childhood and then into my young adulthood, and then navigating cancer and losing my mother at the age of 21. Like, these big life situations really shook me to my core, so much so that I felt, okay, the more I can activate this controlling part of me, the more I can create safety, right? The more I can guarantee all of these uncertain outcomes are going to land in a more favorable place because, whoa, things have not landed in a favorable place before. So let me grip down and do what I can. So the controller is typically somebody that says things like, I'll just handle it, right? Or it's easier if I do it myself. Or if I don't manage this, it's going to fall apart. So when it comes to the holidays, this can look like over planning, over organizing, over coordinating, needing things to go a certain way, feeling tense when plans change. Oh man, do I resonate with that? Now, I love being able to call out the overwhelm archetype because, again, it is skillful to see patterns and where patterns are supportive and where they hold us back from deeper connection. And this year, we hosted a Hanukkah party, and I was very intentional about not letting my controller take over. And so my husband and I host a lot. We love to host. And when we host, we kind of both automatically have different domains that we take care of. You know, my husband's taking care of the outside stuff and the fire pit and maybe cooking outside. And I'm doing stuff inside of the kitchen and maybe organizing and laying out platters. Now, throughout the night, we had these different activities planned, you know, lighting the candles, saying a little speech, doing some raffle prizes, playing some games. And we didn't necessarily beforehand say, okay, you know, you tell me when we want to do this. We created an outline of a schedule, and that, of course, didn't go to plan. You know, people are coming later, people are coming earlier, the things are fluctuating. So you have to stay present, right? When you're hosting, you have to watch the crowd, you have to listen to what the energy is like in the room. And I noticed that there were moments where I wanted to boss my husband around and control the flow. And I noted, like, I watched my controller start to come out, and I paused with it and I asked myself, okay, do I really need to say something right now? It helped me take a beat. That helped me kind of draw my energy back in, rest into the moment, notice, maybe, is he going to step in and do something? And, you know, there are moments where he did, and there are moments where I ended up finding him and saying, hey, I think it's time for the games, or hey, can you set up this? But it wasn't coming also from a controlling place. It was coming more from a place of teamwork, a place of, you know, flow. For me, when I'm working with this overwhelm pattern, I notice that it can still be there because, again, it's there to help me. I don't want to make it wrong. I don't want to create more shame around that patterning, but I can also choose to soften its grip. And so when it comes to the controller showing up in the holidays, a really helpful way to play with this is to even just say, can I let things be a little messy? Can I even let one thing be messy? Right? Can we really practice flexibility over perfection? helpful way to work with flexibility over perfection is to even just get clear on what's most important. What do I really want to prioritize around the holidays, around hosting, around this event, and what doesn't? And so, where can my energy really go towards a sense of from care, and where can I soften from a place of control? So, for you, if you notice that you have the controller pattern, this is your typical archetype default. I welcome you to think about, how is this showing up for you in the holiday season specifically? Where is this making the most noise? Is it around presents, around schedules, around coordinating? Is it around hosting? Maybe you even notice this controlling pattern is showing up around your body, around your health, around how you look, especially during the holidays. And what would be some helpful ways for you to let things be more flexible and imperfect? What would it look like to have things just a little messier? What would happen if you softened your grip just a little bit? And where within your body, within your heart, your mind, can you rest back into trust? What does self-trust look like, or trust of others, trust of the universe, so that you can release some of your control? Getting into the next overwhelm archetype, the spinner. So the spinner is somebody who typically gets trapped in analysis paralysis, especially when there's too much going on, or there's so many options, or maybe there's not that many options, but there's just a desire to do it right. And so trying to choose a way forward can have them spinning in circles. Maybe the mind won't stop ruminating about the decision, or what decision to make, or what choice to make. Or maybe there's just a sense of overwhelm, like you don't even know where to start. So you're just kind of spinning in place. So when it comes to the holidays, maybe this looks like there's so many invitations to parties, to gatherings. Therefore, with all of these invitations, there's so many decisions to make. Do I say yes? Do I say no? Do I say maybe? You notice your mind spins at what you should get somebody as a gift for the holidays. There's somebody maybe you really care about and you want it to be really perfect and put a lot of effort into it. And there's just so many choices out there, and you kind of get a little paralyzed thinking about how to move forward. Sometimes this sense of spinning energy can also translate to rushing and constantly context switching. And so there's even just more of this phonetic energy in the air. So, what is really helpful for spinners, and what I've noticed when working with spinners as coaching clients, is to just help clear some of the mental clutter. And this can look like just taking a moment to pause, like drop the rushing, drop this need to solve the problem or make a decision right now, and create some space. What can you take off of your plate? Really think about your priorities and what fat gets to get trimmed. A lot of spinners tend to hold a lot of different thoughts or competing thoughts in the mind. So it can be really helpful to write things down, brain dump what's in the mind so you can see it on paper, and that creates a release in the mind, but it also creates this visual that spinners can then have some more context outside of their mind to play off of. So maybe instead of saying, I'm going to sit down and order all of my holiday presents today, that might create so much spinning out. So maybe you would say, okay, what's one friend or one family member today that I'm going to buy a present for? And just space it out. Allow yourself to just do one thing at a time. Maybe you're packing for a trip, or you're planning to host a party. Taking that time and space to think about, okay, what are the things I'm going to pack? And instead of, again, allowing the list to be built in the mind, maybe you grab the note section of your phone, or take out a piece of paper and write things down, or start to lay things out on your bed or on a specific part of your couch so that you can start to see everything. Or if you're planning a party, maybe you're writing a schedule for yourself. Maybe you're creating a menu. You're slowing it down, getting out of your mind and onto paper. So if you notice you have the spinner overwhelm archetype, whether by listening to these patterns or you took the quiz at wadeworld.com/quiz, I welcome you to pause here and ask yourself, like, how is this pattern showing up for me in the holidays? Where do I notice my spinner self is leading? And what could it look like to show up differently? What could it look like to do things just one bite at a time, one moment at a time? The next overwhelm archetype is the pusher. So, this pushing pattern can sound like, okay, I'm going to rest once the holidays are done, right? Or I just got to push through this and get through it, and then I'll be able to relax. Or, I'll deal with myself later. I need to just get all of these things down on my to-do list. The core, the pusher believes I need to keep doing more and more and more to feel enough and to receive and deserve rest and to be able to actually relax. What we know, and I know pushers even know this cognitively, rationally, that there's never a done point, right? The done point is when we're dead. The list of to-dos are always going to keep growing. There's never an end point in work. Being able to decipher what is enough. What is enough? So when it comes to the holidays, the pushers are the ones that are powering through holidays. And it's like when they get to the new year, there's just a sense of collapse. They didn't even take this holiday break, so to say, to rest and rejuvenate themselves. Are typically, and again, typically, the ones that will keep saying yes, even if their battery light is on, saying, please charge me. They will push past that to say yes. And it's not from a place of people pleasing. Usually it's from a deeper place within the person where there's a sense of needing to prove that they can do it or wanting to be helpful, but not from a people pleasing lens, but it's just more from a like, I can do this, like I am unstoppable kind of energy. They typically tend to ignore body signals. So ignore what sensations the body's saying that I'm exhausted, maybe a lot of brain fog, slowing down, maybe aches and pains in the body. What can be really helpful for the pushers, especially during the holidays, is to slow down enough. And I say slow down because, again, we can't read signs and signals if we're moving at a fast pace. So slow down enough to tune into their bodies and recognize what are the signs and signals that I need rest. Can I start to track those and notice those instead of waiting for my body to crash, waiting to get sick, waiting to just have utter exhaustion, waiting for something major to make you stop moving at the speed that you're moving at? During the holidays specifically, I mean, any time actually of the year, but just even in the holidays, if you have the pusher pattern and you've noticed you've already committed to so many things and saying no or pulling back from plans feels too much, then even just practicing these micro pauses throughout your day to take a chill pill, to take that pause, whether that's to go on a centered walk, take a restorative mindful walk, whether that's to put your legs up the wall and just surrender for a few minutes, whether that's to take a little micro nap in the day, supporting yourself, just slowing down enough and restoring your batteries just in these little pauses can be tremendously helpful. And then what really works, even from a more cognitive perspective, is to think about what is enough, to get really clear as you're completing the holiday season, what is enough and how can you live within those enough parameters versus pushing past the enough or letting enough be this infinity, very airy kind of goal that you tend to just keep pushing, but you don't know what you're pushing towards. When you get clear on the enough, that gets to help you have some parameters, some data to kind of tune your attention to. So if it's hard to stay and listen to what your body's telling you, maybe you're then looking for the data in the outside world, right? Did I get those 5 emails done today because that was my enough goal? Did I buy those 3 gifts? Did I go to one Christmas party? Like, what is enough for you? Even thinking about who you're spending time with. If you know there's certain family members or friends or coworker events that you have said yes to, but you know they're really draining and you don't enjoy being around their energy, even noting what is enough time and energy spent with those people or that person. And can you not push past it? Can you really listen to yourself intuitively? So if the pusher pattern, this overwhelm archetype resonates for you, or you've taken the quiz and that's the one that has popped up, then I welcome you to take again a beat here and ask yourself, how is this pattern showing up for me specifically in this season of life, specifically around the holidays? Where am I pushing and overriding my body, my wise self? Maybe even take a moment to notice what the impact of that has been. Do you feel even more exhausted? Do you feel more irritable? Is it affecting your relationships? Is it affecting your sleep? Is it affecting your health, your skin? And then playing around with this question of what could it look like this season to have enough, to do enough, to be enough. Design what that gets to look like. Get very clear, write it out. What does it look like to listen to the signals and signs of your body that it's had enough? What does your body need to rest and restore? And what could that look like this holiday season? We'll transition into the next overwhelm archetype, which is the avoider. Wouldn't we like to avoid this one? So as you can probably guess, the avoider is really good at avoiding. They don't want to deal. They don't want to talk about it. They just want it to be over. They want to pretend it doesn't exist. They want to ignore it. They don't want to make it a big deal. So when it comes to the holidays in particular, the avoiders, typically the pattern, right, is procrastinating decisions, maybe avoiding, am I going to say yes or no to those holiday plans? Am I going to ignore getting back to invites? Am I just going to withdraw from participating in anything, not from a place of choice, but from this place of avoidance? And you could say avoidance is a choice, but in my experience, avoidance, when that's happening, is it's a sort of shutdown. It's a sort of freeze that happens in people's nervous system. And so I wouldn't say it's like a conscious choice that they're making. It's just a literal shutdown and freeze, like a deer in the headlights kind of energy. So they're withdrawing from maybe holiday season, not by saying, hey, I'm going to step out of this holiday season, but just, I don't know what to do. Like hands up, freeze, This might look like wanting to say things to certain family members or friends, like, I'm going to only come to the party, but for 2 hours, or I'm not going to be able to make it home for Christmas, or you can expect my family and I on these days, but we're going to be doing our own thing on these days. Deep down, want to share honestly, but this pattern of avoiding is so dominant that it restricts their ability to be able to clearly communicate. So what can help avoiders during this time of the year, especially, is to think about, instead of the holidays as this big thing, because I think when we just think about this holiday season come, after December 1, after Thanksgiving, or even leading up to Thanksgiving and until the beginning of the year, this big chunk of time, the holidays, can feel really overwhelming. There's so many different things to do, people to see, things to buy, things to make, places to travel, things to not do, right? It's just a time that creates so much pressure. expectations, a lot of the things we talked about in the beginning of this episode. So instead of thinking of the holidays as this big, overwhelming thing, is to break it down into micro holidays, right? One holiday at a time, break it down into tiny action steps to think of things as just one thing at a time. So maybe it's writing everything down, it's being able to visually see it if that's more how your brain works. See all the holidays, see all of the maybe common rituals that you have. Typically, we usually see our family this day and we do this day or whatever it might be. Have it all laid out visually so you can just see it or written down. And then just take one bite at a time. So think about what's one holiday you can focus on at a time or one decision that you can make. When avoiders can see it all, it helps them actually just like face it, right? They're not doing it all, but they're just seeing what they need to face. And that can feel overwhelming at first, but when it's written down and it's not this like ethereal, big holiday thing, when they can break it down into actual tangible chunks, it can feel more approachable. And then you can get even clearer on creating some by whens. And when you create some action steps and some tiny exposure to those events or to those action steps or to following through, it can help avoiders feel more confident and competent to face whatever it is. And you want to go really slow here. So that's why I say, like, write it down, have it out, because you can break it into all of these little micro steps. And when you do that, it's like, oh, it's not that bad to open up the invite. Oh, it's not that bad to put that on the calendar. Oh, it's not that bad to write a reminder to myself that I need to say, no, we can't come to this invite. And one of the biggest resources that avoiders who have this pattern can lean on, and this is a muscle to practice, is to be very kind and self-compassionate as you're facing these things one at a time, is to not feel pressured to do it perfectly, to not feel pressured to respond, but to feel this sense of you've got your own back. Like you have the care and the self-love and the self-belief and that self-confidence within, that you can make these choices. You can face these decisions one tiny step at a time. So if you notice the avoider pattern in you, whether this is your primary one based on the quiz, or you are just maybe even noticing this part is showing up for you, specifically around the holidays, welcome you to pause here and get really clear, like, how is this avoider pattern showing up for me this holiday season or right now in my life? What am I avoiding because it maybe feels so overwhelming or daunting or full of fear? And then maybe get clear, like, what would it look like to be able to face what I'm avoiding, right? Now that you know the places that you're avoiding right now, what would it look like to face them? And take some time to journal, reflect on that, get clear on the ways that you want to get in right alignment with yourself. Reminding yourself to make it small and be very kind along the journey. The next overwhelm archetype is the overgiver. And the overgiver, this pattern, it typically sounds like everybody else comes first. This is typically somebody who's such a nurturer, a caretaker of others, people who don't want to disappoint anybody. There's kind of this like, oh, I'll be okay, but like make everybody else happy, and I come last, or my needs don't matter, to prioritize everybody else. So when it comes to the holidays, this can be overcommitting, right? Saying yes, 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 just to please people, to just override one's own needs and intelligence of what that person actually wants, right? Oh, I'm saying yes to these events. I'm saying yes to hosting. I'm saying yes to traveling. I'm saying yes to making 10 dishes to bring. there's just a yes response without the pause to check in. What can end up happening behind closed doors when there's constantly saying yes, there's constantly overextending oneself, people pleasing, is that quiet resentment starts to build, exhaustion starts to happen. And a lot of the time, overgivers don't necessarily know that they're overgiving. They give from this deep desire of care, but the care for others can come from sometimes this place of protection, of wanting to be liked, of wanting to keep the peace, of wanting to look good, of wanting to feel safe. And again, that's been conditioned from typically childhood or other parts or places in their life. But over giving, like if I am such a giver, I will always be invited to places, or I will always be loved, or people will always like me or think of me. And when we then give from more of those places versus just a deep desire of generosity and not balanced by what do I actually need, right? So it's not being selfless, but it's also being, can I care for myself and can I care for others, right? Can I care for others and can I care for myself? That sense of duality, that both roads can be open versus it just being focused on the other people. And when we care for others from more of a place of fear or this deeper needs of preservation or safety, it can create a place where we're constantly living in this cycle of depleting our own sense of self, our own needs, instead of allowing there to be space for both. During the holiday season, in a season of giving, in a season of receiving, it can be really easy for overgivers to continue to overgive and also not be able to receive. Not being able to receive, meaning maybe not being able to receive people's help or not be able to receive people's own generosity because there's maybe this feeling of like, oh, I don't deserve it. I just am here to serve others. So some ways during the holidays to think about this is to one, practice pausing, right? When you are in the midst of the holiday season, is to practice pausing and asking yourself, what do I need right now? What do I need? So, starting to train your attention to go inwards versus scanning your environment of how can I be helping others? And your muscle to do that is so strong that we want to support you also listening in so that you can start to strike a balance where you can be giving to self and you can be giving to others. Asking yourself in this pause, like, do I actually have capacity for this? Do I have capacity to pick up that pie that somebody's asking me to pick up? Do I have capacity to host another party? Do I have capacity to watch my cousin's kids? Like, whatever it might be, just taking that moment to check in with yourself. When you can get in right relationship with yourself, when you can really start to give to yourself just as much as you're giving to others, you start to then be able to be okay disappointing others, to recognize that that can actually be a healthy boundary when you're not a yes person all the time. When you start to say no or not now or only this much, and maybe that's going to change other people's reaction. It's going to change other people's responses because they're used to getting so much from you. So that you say, actually, I only can give you an hour of my time right now. And people are used to getting 10 hours of your time. That's a big difference. And they might be disappointed. They might be sad. They might be angry. They might be frustrated. But that's okay. Can we let them have their experience? Can we let them be disappointed? Because we know that you're also taking care of yourself and you're still being giving. So I welcome you to pause here. And again, if you resonate with the overgiver or you resonate with even just like aspects of this pattern this holiday season, check in and notice, where am I overgiving this season? Where am I overriding my own needs, my own capacity to a place that doesn't feel helpful? Maybe to a place of overexhaustion, places where resentment is starting to build. Get curious, maybe take some time to journal those thoughts, those experiences, those instances down. And then maybe brainstorming, like, what are some of the ways that I can give to myself this holiday season? What are some of the ways that I can give to myself this holiday season? Or what does it even look like, or can it look like to pause and check in with myself and say, hey, what are my needs today? And learning to learn and name and label your needs is a really big practice. But it's a really beautiful practice, not only for your own well being, but to model it for your family, for your friends, to recognize that it's human to have needs, that it's okay, that it's not selfish. The last overwhelm archetype to explore today is the drifter. So the drifter tends to be somebody who really needs to be grounded in purpose and direction. And a lot of the times when their energy isn't focused to something, it can feel like they're checked out. It can feel like they're just going through the motions. They're kind of not tethered to something. So there's just kind of like this floaty quality that maybe to the outside could look like, oh, they don't really care. Or maybe internally there's this feeling of like apathy, like, I don't know, I don't care. I'm kind of checked out here, or I'm just going living life. When the drifter feels overwhelmed, it's kind of like there is, look, why have an opinion? Why be grounded in something? There's just so much going on. So I'm just going to kind of ping pong my way through this. When it comes to the holidays in particular, where there can be, again, a lot of different types of overwhelm, somebody who experiences the drifter pattern might feel disconnected. They might have this kind of like flat energy, like, it's the holidays, so what? Who cares? And they might spend a lot of time scrolling on social media, on their phone, zoning out, um, feeling maybe guilty for not being festive or not being as involved or participatory, or even just like having a strong opinion, right? Like, I dislike the holidays or I love the holidays. They're just kind of in this like space, not even neutral. It's like disengaged a little bit. So for this drifter pattern that can show up, what can be really helpful around the holidays specifically is to get curious with yourself and ask, what feels meaningful to me about this time of year? Like, connect to your purpose, connect to your values, connect to what matters to you, not just because of what's happening around you, but how do you actually want to make this time of year special? However you want that to look. Not that it needs to be this pressure of a holiday season, but just, how do you like using the holidays? Is it a time to fully restore your energy? Is it a time to get quiet and still? Is it a time to be gregarious with friends and play and with family? Instead of being in this I don't know space that kind of tends to shut you down and create more of this aloof energy, you're actually directing your attention to what feels meaningful and important to you. And when you maybe journal about this, like, just allow yourself to brain dump some ideas of, what actually do I want this time of year to look like? And this can help you feel empowered about how you want to use this time, because you get to choose. You don't get to and don't have to be a victim to it, but you get to choose. It can also be helpful for the drifters is to reconnect to joy in an authentic way, And for some of us, that actually is a really big practice. Like we have to warm ourselves up of how to enjoy joy or how to receive joy or knowing that joy can actually exist. And even if it's not your joy, maybe that you can borrow and absorb other people's joys by watching people cut down Christmas trees or watching funny movies or walking through neighborhoods that put up a lot of Christmas lights and cheer and just absorbing that kind of joy or holiday spirit. I know that can be really helpful for me. So, for the drifters, I want you to remember that this is not something to create shame around, that you don't have a strong opinion or that you've just been feeling flat about the holidays. We don't need to create another judgmental story for ourselves. But instead, this sense of numbness, the sense of aloofness actually gets to be information. And so you get to get even more curious and kind with yourself of how can I actually bring some joy or passion or direction to this time of year. And it doesn't have to look like anything hallmarky or anything at all. Like you get to design it in a way that feels meaningful to you. So as we bring this episode to a close, I just want to remind us all, myself included here, that we all have these different overwhelm archetypes, these different patterns within ours. And we have one, maybe two that tend to show up more strongly, but primarily one that becomes that default. And that doesn't mean we are that thing. That just means it's a patterning within us. And the more that we can bring kind, curious attention to that patterning, we can explore how to use it in ways that can serve us better and ways to meet that patterning with a lot of care and know that it's that patterning is coming from a deeper place of protection and nurturing. And sometimes that protection and nurturing is actually keeping us so much in a safe or familiar pattern that we can want to be ready to be in relationship to that overwhelm archetype, that overwhelm pattern in a different way. So the holidays can be a really fertile ground, really fertile, right? There's a lot going on to practice this and play with it and explore how you can show up differently. And maybe that even gives you some insight of what kind of energy you want to be bringing into the new year. Not because you need to change, not because you're broken, not because something's wrong, but more so coming from this place of how do you want to intentionally live life? And hopefully a little bit more conscious, a little bit more aware of yourself, your life, your internal world, so that you can live in your external world more intentionally. As you think about the new year, if you are curious to go even deeper into the self awareness practice, I am really excited to host my winter mindfulness retreat on the beautiful Whidbey Island here in the Pacific Northwest. And this will be a weekend of deepening our mindfulness practice, of bringing more curious attention to our lives, to our bodies, so that we can take the sense of awareness and fully living life, like noticing what it fully is to live with all of our senses, to bring that into the new year. We're going to set some intentions and get really clear on the type of energy we want to be cultivating in 2026. So, if that sounds like, yes, I'd love to be in that space with other amazing women, I welcome you to head on over to retreat.centeredinthecity.org and check it out for more details. Apply. There are a few spots that remain, and we are just a few weeks away from closing the retreat application. So make sure you get in. As you move through this holiday season, I would love to hear from you how this episode is supporting you, what you're noticing about your typical overwhelm pattern here, your overwhelm archetype. For you to reach out to me on social media at One Weight on Instagram, or you can send me a note linked in the show notes. Thank you for being here. Thank you for letting this episode into your mind, your ears, your heart. Maybe even share this episode with somebody in your life that you know could take some nuggets of wisdom and integrate it into their life. And until next time, stay centered.